Hey everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. We are gathered here today to talk about all of the books that I read in the month of July, of which there are 6 of them. I structured the month of July around the Summer Splash Readathon that was being hosted by Sally Thames, and I tried my hardest to hit a bingo, but I didn't quite do it. Either way, I read some really fun and not so fun books this month, but we'll get into all of that here in a little bit. This is actually the last wrap up that we will be having together here in my bedroom. We are officially 2 weeks out from our move to Michigan, so we're gonna be packing up, moving to a completely different state soon, which means that my filming setup will be completely different. I am going to have a true designated library space, which I will hopefully film all of my videos in and prove to you guys that I do actually have bookshelves. They have just been kind of in a chaos room for the last little bit, but my vision for the space is beautiful and I can't wait to show you guys. If you are curious to see my empty house walkthrough, that is in the previous vlog that I just posted on Sunday evening, so feel free to check that out. My average rating this month for my books was a 4.04, which I think is fantastic of the 6 books. I had only one that was below a 3, one that was sort of in the 3 range, and then everything else was 4 and up. We will start with my lowest rated and go to my highest rated, and the lowest rated book this month that I rated at a 2.75 out of 5 was Fall into Darkness by Christopher Pike. I read this to cross off the box for a book that was a childhood favorite of mine. I loved Christopher Pike because I also loved R.L. Stine, and I think Christopher Pike was a real natural progression back then. This is a thriller written for teens, and we are following Anne. She's rich, everyone loves her, and she's this rich orphan type. I think her parents are dead, her brother just recently died, and everyone wants her, everyone wants to be her. And then when her brother dies, she blames it all on her best friend Sharon. Her brother was in love with Sharon, it was a very melodramatic affair, and so now Anne is cooking up this plot in which she will fake her own death in the hopes that everyone will think that Sharon murdered her. This book, it's just so melodramatic. It reads like a Lifetime movie, but honestly a little bit worse. Definitely very plot driven. It is fast paced. I think I crushed this in a couple of days, if that. And the surprise did catch me off guard. I forgot what the twist was. You kind of think you know the twist because we're getting this dual timeline of Sharon, who's actively on trial for her friend's murder, and then the plotting that went into everyone thinking that this was the case. Not a lot of character development though, and honestly, just a little weird reading it as a grown woman, as Christopher Pike is describing like the sexual appetites of these teenage girls, how sexual they're looking and vivacious, and that's kind of cringe to me, so that is why this was rated just below a 3-star. The next book that I read this month was Essential Labor by Angela Garbez. This is a non-fiction book about motherhood. I was really looking forward to this, and it just didn't necessarily do what I was hoping that it would. I was really hoping that this would hit all of the notes that I had wanted All About Love by Bell Hooks to hit, especially in regards to parenting children and how we can use that power to create a better world and community. We get some of that, but not all the way. This does feel like we're reading 3 different books at once. We have some really gorgeous memoir writing as she speaks about her relationship with her immigrant parents and outlines their move from the Philippines to the United States, what her upbringing was like in terms of what parenting felt like from that generation, and how she experienced love and the things that she took from that love to pass down to her daughters, and the things that she was left wanting more of. We do also have some more fact-driven data and studies and mentions of different efforts that have been made throughout history to pay women for the labor that they are doing in the home, whether that's being a house cleaner, a mother. And then we have this third type of story where it's the pandemic. All of this has had a very harsh light shown on it, as a lot of the work in the home falls on women again, even though they're trying to work from home. And Angela Garbez writes about the position that the pandemic put her in, how she started learning how to love her own body, how she's teaching her daughters to love their own bodies. And the thread that ties all of these books together is very thin. I think individually there's a lot of great stuff in here. There's just not a lot of cohesion for me. And I was kind of disappointed that there was an inclusivity hook at the beginning about how any gender and any person can mother, whether they're a birthing parent or not. And that is never explored in this book. We don't get any mentions of queer family structures. How could a family of two fathers mother their children? We don't get that here. And especially in regards to men, she writes about how mothering requires a lot of vulnerability and openness. And those are traits that are often frowned upon for men. And I really would have liked to see that explored a little bit more, how men can break down those barriers and be more nurturing and take that load that often falls on women. Interesting overall, just not what I hoped, and it doesn't get into the social change aspect part as much as I'd hoped that it would. So this was a 3.75. The next book that I read this month completely took me by surprise. I read it as a book from a genre that I do not read that often, and I had The Employees by Olga Raven. I really loved this one. This novella to me is like if Westworld and Severance had a teeny tiny little novella baby. This is a workplace sci-fi drama. We have these employees who are working on board the 6000 ship, and they're in space. This spaceship has recently picked up a couple of mysterious objects in this land of new discovery that they had landed on, and they have the objects stashed away on the ship, and the crew is responsible for taking care of them. We don't get a full description of the objects, but this workplace committee is interviewing the employees about the objects and how they are impacting their workflow and their feelings about the objects overall. Each page reads as a statement. We never have any character names. We sometimes get an employee number. There aren't really any characters to latch onto in this story, and we actually don't even know who is human and who is not. That is what made this book so fun to read. As you're reading through these statements, learning more about the objects and how everyone is reacting to them. We have the human crew members. The longer they're in space, the sadder they're getting and the more nostalgic that they're getting for their life on Earth. Meanwhile, the humanoid characters are becoming more and more human-like in their characteristics. They want to nurture these objects, they want to care for them. They start noticing things about their human coworkers that they never had before. And it was just so fun to read, and just watching as time progresses in these statements. They're told over the course of 18 months. Just seeing how their attitudes have changed and ultimately what happens to the crew on board of the 6000 ship. This was a 4-star for me. The only reason it wasn't a little bit higher is just because the nature of the statements and not really having any characters or a true grounding in time or space, literally. Did take a second for me to find my footing in here, and I do love having at least a character or two to really attach myself to in the story. I don't think it was necessarily necessary here, but it's just something I always like to have. And fair warning to my fellow trypophobic girlies, this book will get you with the tiny holes, and I think we all got our trypophobia from the same damn picture, and a lot of the descriptions in here are very similar to that picture. So fair warning in that respect. I'm not taking off any points for that, even though I could take off like 1,000, but definitely recommend this one, even if you don't like sci-fi. My next two books, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I really couldn't help it. And I went on a mini Emily Henry binge and read Beach Read and Book Lovers. Going to kind of review these together because the things that I liked were almost the same in both of them. The lower rated of the two was Beach Read. This I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. In this book we have January. She is a romance novelist. She's always seen the world through her little rose-tinted lenses. She really looks up to her parents' love. She had this perfect boyfriend. She just really was always drawn to the romance novel genre. Then her dad dies, and she learns that her dad had a side piece, basically a double life, but he has left her his lake house on the west side of Michigan. The house kind of comes at a good time for her. She is overdue for a book that she was supposed to write. She's really running out of money. She's newly single, and so she's mostly looking forward to getting to this house, selling everything she can, and then selling the house itself while she writes her book so she can get some money and get back on her feet. But when she gets to the lake house, she learns that her neighbor is Augustus, and Augustus, unbeknownst to him, is her nemesis from college. And while she was always writing the fluffy stuff, he was always writing the pretentious, dark, literary stuff. They're drawn together by the local bookseller in town, and when they both realize that they're facing some writer's block for each of their respective books, they decide to challenge each other to a genre swap. And with this challenge, they are coaching each other. So Augustus has been tasked with writing a book that heavily features romance, and January is taking him on these dates to get him in the mood for that rom-com vibe. Meanwhile, Augustus has been interviewing members of a suicide cult and wants January to take inspiration from that so that she can get in that dark, serious, literary headspace. I really love this book. I will get more into it on why after I tell you about Book Lovers. This one was rated slightly higher at a 4.25. The only reason Beach Read is a little bit less is because January is this hopeless romantic character. She goes on these very impassioned but also kind of corny monologues, which I didn't love that much, but still loved it as a whole. In Book Lovers, we have Nora. She is a very sharp literary agent, good as fuck at her job, knows exactly what she's doing, and she has her arch nemesis, which is Charlie Lastra. Nora is always working, never takes a break, and also is just down on her luck with the relationship. And her sister is pregnant with her third child and basically begs Nora to go on a vacation with her to this really charming North Carolina town that is the setting for one of Nora's most popular books that she's sold. Nora's sister really wants them to have a rom-com-ish getaway together. She's written out this list very similar to a Hallmark movie where they want to help save a small local business, ride horses, just those really cheesy rom-com-y things. And when Nora and her sister gets there, she finds Charlie there, and then the two of them strike up this working relationship, yada yada yada. When I say that I want to read romance, this is what I want. When I say I want a slow burn romance, these are both almost 400 pages. This is what I want. Emily Henry does such a good job at writing realistic characters that do not feel flat or two-dimensional in any way. Because her characters are so fleshed out and so well-rounded, you get really drawn into their lives and not just the romance part of it. The romance part of it just ends up being this like extra awesome, steamy thing to look forward to in their lives. The traditional formula of a lot of the romances that I've read, we get them together after some challenges, and then there's a big miscommunication that puts the relationship in jeopardy and they have to work their way to each other. A lot of times that miscommunication is out of character, doesn't make sense for them, and just ends up being really frustrating because they were maybe a little frustrating before that breakdown in communication and frustrating in the process of getting together. And in Emily Henry's books, the romance just feels so organic as it starts to build, and it's not a dumb miscommunication that keeps them apart or prevents the relationship from happening. It's some real life stuff, and it's to the point where you wouldn't be surprised if they didn't end up together at the end, or if they did. I don't want to spoil it. That is what I really liked about these books, is just the realness. The charming small town locations are very prevalent in this. I think especially if you loved watching Gilmore Girls and getting into Stars Hollow and that sort of location, you would really like these books as well. I can't wait to read People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. And if you have any recommendations for romance books that are like this, with real lovable characters and natural organic feeling romance, please leave it down in the comment section, because this is what I like. And the highest rated book that I had this month, I read on my Kindle, and this is a book that I was so excited for. I waited so long for it, and it should be a testament to how good this book is that it was a 5-star for me, because I was getting kind of salty because I loved this author's other book so much. It was also a 5-star. My review on Goodreads says that it's so good it makes me never want to read a book again. And I started to get a little salty. She hadn't come out with a book in a long time. This book has taken 10 years to come out, I think. And I was ready to be critical and just write her off forever, but it just made me fall in love with her even more. Allison Espach is an insta-buy author for me, and I am talking about the book Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance. I do think it's interesting that 2 of my 5-star books this year, Notes on an Execution and Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance, have been 5 stars for me. Authors, take notes. If you want me to give it 5 stars, have a notes on title, and I'm probably going to be in love with it. Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance follows Sally. She is a teenager who has just lost her sister after she tragically died. This book is told in a second-person POV, which I know is controversial, but I think in this story specifically, it really works out so beautifully, because when somebody dies, you want to talk to them. You want to tell them what they're missing out on. You want to tell them what life is like without them. And I think that that way of storytelling for Sally to speak to her sister about how their parents are grieving, how she is grieving, what the new drama is at school, I think that was so effective. When Sally loses her sister, she's at that age where she's a new teenager, she's really figuring things out, and her parents really turn inwards with their grief, and she finds that she has no one to really talk to about it, and the only person that she wants to talk about her sister's death with is her sister. She finds that the next best person to talk about her death with is her sister's boyfriend, Billy, who Sally has always kind of been infatuated with and always really got along with well when their sister was alive. But because of her death and how they were both connected to it, they start to bond super deeply in late night phone calls and online chats, and just build a very special friendship that is bound together with their shared grief and trauma over what happened with Sally's sister. I don't want to say too much else about it. I do have a vlog where I talk about this book in depth. I just thought it was so beautiful. Allison Espach's writing is just like top tier, so good, so emotional, just sucks you in. I wanted to Google Sally's family to make sure that they are doing okay. I wanted to read all of the articles about her sister's death. I wanted to see what Sally is doing now. I was so invested in this freaking family, and that is her writing that did that. I also especially loved the time period being like in the late 90s, early 2000s, where you do start building these relationships and friendships over like AOL. Sally is at that age where people don't give her credit for knowing the things that she does, or thinking the things that she does, or noticing everything that she's noticing. And so she has such a rich inner dialogue as she's speaking to her sister, and I can't say enough good things about this. Why is nobody talking about this book? It's a crime against humanity that this book is not huge. Everybody needs to read this book, and that's all I really have to say about it. Pick up this damn book, do yourself a favor, give Allison Espach all of your money. I am personally pissed that I got this book from the library, and I really need to stop getting these 5-star prediction books from the freaking library. I keep reading so many incredible books that I get on audio or from the library, and I don't have like a physical trace of them when they're gone. So I'm going to be giving Allison Espach money after I move. I can't wait to reread her first book. I want to do it in my rereading favorites series, so you guys will have that to look forward to as well. That is all I've got for you guys. I am going to get back to packing. I'm hoping that I'll have at least one more video before we move, maybe a vlog or something as we get deeper into the process of packing and moving. If you are new here, please be sure to subscribe. Gives me a confidence boost every single time, and I am only 20 subscribers away from 200, which is my goal for 2022 as a whole. So if you subscribe, you're really helping me reach for the stars, hit my dreams, achieve my goals. You could be a part of that. Also, be sure to like this video, just doubles up on that confidence boost that I have, and leave a comment down below with your romance recs that are similar to Emily Henry, and tell me all of your favorite books that you read in the month of July. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Happy reading and cheers!